When it comes to the anime community, there's one thing that it fails to understand. Nothing is perfect. Every work of fiction and story has its own set of flaws and problems that surround it. One Piece has issues with fake deaths, Naruto has issues with having a pretty mediocre female cast, and Black Clover has issues with being good. Okay, cut, that was a joke, I swear, I'm sorry. Actually, you know what, I'm not sorry. If you can't take a joke, then go get off Twitter and touch some grass. In my opinion, the biggest problem with the anime community is it fails to understand what it means to truly love something. To truly love a series, a person, or a thing, you must first understand its flaws and issues, but yet love it despite those issues. Recognizing that they exist and not ignoring them. Only then, in my opinion, do you truly enjoy and love that very thing. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know the objective problems of every series, but for today's video we are going to discuss my problems with the Bleach franchise. While this video will solely stick to some personal issues and genuine flaws I have with the story, this is all still my opinion. I know, scary big words for Twitter. I love Bleach to death, heck I turned my entire channel to be based around Bleach, but despite that, the story is over 600 chapters long. So if I don't have a dozen of issues or small preference changes with the story, then either I'm a blind fanboy or this must be almost a perfect story, which in my opinion never exists. Anyway, subscribe because Twitter is going to steal all my subs from me, drop a like and comment your thoughts on some of the issues with the story of Bleach, and subscribe to SpeedWagon, link in the description for editing today's audio. Anyway, 1000-year Blood War spoilers ahead, and without all further ado, let's get into the video. So to begin a lot of my problems with the Bleach series, I'm only going to list a few in this video. Maybe I'll do a part 2 later on, but I feel like this video should be very concise and specific with some of my biggest issues with the entire story. So to just start out plainly with my first point, the ARRANCAR arc has some mega pacing issues and has a lot of unnecessary fights and moments. Literally all the lieutenant fights except Shuhei's and Fake Karakura Town are really unneeded in my opinion. In fact, some of them are actually terrible and downgrade the entire story. I was so bored reading throughout Charlotte vs Yumi Chika, I was bored throughout the pillar fight with the Kakemadarame, and several other of the lieutenant fights during the Fake Karakura Town section of the ARRANCAR arc were absolutely boring. On top of that, a lot of the pre-Avaran Espadas were very boring to watch as well, maybe with the exception of one of them, but just for the most part, they just made it feel like the story was stretching itself thin. Like, I really do enjoy the Espada fights and the entire overarching thematic prevalence of the ARRANCAR arc. It just had a lot of unnecessary fights that made it feel like it dragged just a bit too long here and there. Like, a lot of those fights could have been just a few pages, but they turned out to be way longer than that, and they were just very boring to read. Like, I wanted to get into the captain's fights. And on top of that, that actually brings me to my second issue with the Espadas overall as an enemy force. All the Espadas felt were mega weak. Like, not the ones that fought Ichigo. Like, Grimmjow was cool, Ukiura was cool, but a lot of the Espadas lost with no trouble at all. Mayuri was playing around with Grans throughout the entire fight, and while that fight was legendary with the thematic prevalence behind it, Grans never felt threatening when he fought against Mayuri. Like, Mayuri always kind of had control over the fight, and even in the moments that we thought Mayuri was going to lose, it was only 10 seconds later and Mayuri was already winning once again. Zamari vs Byakuya, Byakuya just destroys Zamari like it's nothing. Zamari never felt dangerous, but what I think makes this issue one of the bigger issues throughout the Espadas as a whole is when it comes to the top 3 Espadas, Haribel, Baragon, and Star. With a story that we were told had such a threatening force known as the Espada, characters that were supposed to be above captain level or higher, we would have expected at least 1 or 2 character deaths on the captain's side. However, we received none of that, making them feel very unthreatening as they didn't really have to lose much to win. Storyphone lost her arm, but at the end of the day, it wasn't that big of a deal. She and Haichi won still. Like, most of the Espadas don't even have like a single win under their belt with the exception of Grimmjow Ukiura, and I guess you could also include Yami into that. But still, Yami didn't feel that threatening, he felt like a massive giant joke. So the issues with the Espada as a whole is they just didn't feel threatening enough. However, as we enter 1000-year Blood War, we have quite the opposite issue when it comes to the Sternritter. Why I love both of these forces so much, like I love the Espada's characters, and I love some of the Sternritter characters, there was a lot of Sternritters that I just had no care for in the world. Most notably Pepe. Pepe's existence is the biggest flaw in the story of Bleach. Let's talk about it. Master Masculine, while I hate him, he doesn't even have a backstory, and his character isn't even all that deep. Heck, take any of these Sternritters out there, and the majority of them are unexplored. They don't have enough depth to their characters, and they just feel like they're there to be there. And like I said, Thousand Year Blood War is my favorite arc into the story, and I love how the Sternritters are such this threatening force. It's almost the opposite issue we have with the Espada, but a lot of their characters feel I mean, I love Bambi's character, I love Asnot's character, I love Hugrim's character, I love Basby's character, and I love a few other characters here and there throughout them, but the majority of them I wasn't the biggest fan of. By the way, Pepe is still the biggest flaw within Bleach. Anyway, let's move on to the next issue we have with Bleach. One of my other biggest issues is that Bleach has a major issue with faking deaths. Now, this is a lot of series out there that have this issue. It's not just Bleach, but like characters like Izuru Kira, Byakuya Kuchiki, and even Shunsui to some extent end up having a fake death. Now, I don't think Shunsui's is that big of an issue, but Byakuya and Izuru Kira, especially during Thousand Year Blood War, was a major issue. But we also have characters like Rukia Kuchi that kind of face inside of the ARRANCAR arc just a little bit, and we also have a few other places here and there throughout the story. But I think the biggest one, and the one that most people have the biggest issue with, including myself, was Byakuya Kuchiki. Because through Byakuya's death, we could have had so many great moments that showed growth. And you could have had the same amount of growth with Byakuya's character and his treatment of Rukia later on, maybe shown through a flashback while Rukia fought Asnot, that would have accomplished the same thing that he did in that moment because he survived. I think because Byakuya survived, he got a little bit more character development, but because of that, it hurt Renji's character and it hurt Rukia's. Because Renji's character would finally have surpassed Byakuya in a way that he never wanted to surpass Byakuya. One of Renji's biggest goals was to surpass Byakuya and claim the position of captain, and if Byakuya died, he would have been forced to surpass him without ever truly being able to surpass him. Heck, causing a very interesting character dynamic throughout Renji's entire character arc, and it would have been a perfect conclusion to Renji's character. And with Rukia Kuchiki, she would have to cope with dealing with the loss of her big brother, Byakuya Kuchiki. So it would have been very interesting in that dynamic as well. But at the end of the day, that's not an actual issue with the storytelling, because that's just me pointing out what could have happened. The issue I have with Byakuya's death is that we literally have characters say that Byakuya is dead, and we are presumed to know that Byakuya is dead, but then 5 chapters later, it's revealed that he's in a coma. It's absolutely stupid that Byakuya survived in that moment. It is a major flaw within the story of Bleach. And I still love the moment that Byakuya has with Asnot and Rukia. I love that moment where he calls his Bankai beautiful, but my issue with his death is not because we lose on all this potential story writing with Renji and Rukia's characters, but we also have that writing countback where we literally have characters that say he is dead, but then he survives. To the audience, he is dead, there should be no reason why he survives that moment, but Kubo backtracks and writes him back into existence. Now, again, I'm not supporting any harassment of Tite Kubo, I'm just criticizing with how Byakuya was handled, especially after the entire Byakuya scandal that happened, but I'm not really going to get into that inside today's video. We can discuss that later if you guys so desire. My next issue comes with every arc besides the Thousand Year Blood War arc. Every arc inside the story of Bleach starts a little too slow in my opinion. Like, I'm intrigued, I'm interested in some of the concepts, but I just feel like the worst parts of Bleach is usually the start of each and every arc. I mean, I absolutely hated the start to Soul Society with Kukaku and Ganju being one of my least favorite characters throughout the entire story. It was just very boring to me. However, the Ginichimaru moment, still 10 out of 10. Bye-bye, peak fiction. Best moment in all of fiction, let's talk about for real. But still, I feel like the start of every arc, besides Thousand Year Blood War, is probably its weakest point. Maybe not like the first chapter of the arc, because I think the first chapter of the Substitute Shinigami arc is actually pretty good, but I don't like really the chapters after that nearly as much. I have them on a lower scale overall. And same with the ARRANCAR arc, while I love Shinji's introduction, I love a few key elements here and there, Grand Fisher coming back, I still wish that it wasn't as slow of a get up. I just feel like the start compared to the middle and the end of each of the arcs is just its weakest aspect. But yeah, that's just my opinion on the start of every arc besides Thousand Year Blood War. Finally, for my final problem is the Bleach anime isn't the best adaptation. Now I see a lot of people be praising the Bleach anime inside my comment section, inside the YouTube atmosphere, and I just have to disagree. I don't like how the adaptation took place from the manga. I think Thousand Year Blood War will be a lot better of an adaptation, and this is from somebody who got into Bleach through the anime. I think the anime has major filler issues here and there, major pacing issues, and I genuinely just believe that when you're watching the Bleach anime, it's just a poor adaptation of the Bleach manga. Like, if you read the Bleach manga and anime side by side, the manga is just a way superior version of reading the story. Like, filler aside, I think the Bleach anime is a solid 7.5, maybe 8 out of 10 range between there, while I think the manga of Bleach is a 9.5 out of 10, and that is the drastic change between the story. Now, if we include filler, I'd have Bleach like a 7 out of 10. So, there's like that 1 point difference with the filler, because some of the Bleach filler isn't terrible. It's usually between the 5 to 6 out of 10 range for me, with one of the arcs getting up to like a 7 or an 8. I mean, I made an entire video ranking the filler arcs of the Bleach anime, if you guys want to go check that video out. But that's kind of my issues with the Bleach anime as a whole, and I feel like those issues are very key to understanding why I've said so many bad things about the anime. Now, again, the anime does do some stuff right. I think the anime nailed the Lost Agent arc, and the added scenes with Ichigo falling into despair after losing his powers the second time are so bloody good. But overall, the Bleach anime is a poor adaptation in my opinion, and I think it has a lot of major issues. That being said, soundtrack is amazing, and there's a lot of amazing aspects too, and I definitely recommend watching the anime. Like, I don't say like stay away from the anime, I just think it has a lot of pacing issues between the great aspects of it. Like, the Bleach anime does the Ukiura fight better than the manga in my opinion. I prefer the anime version of that fight. The amount of that they lengthen the fight just makes it so much more engaging, so much longer, and so much more fun to watch. That being said, the manga version of it is still 10 out of 10 chapters. It's just so are those episodes. But anyway, I know this video is somewhat short compared to some of my other videos. It's not short out of choice, it's short just because it ended up being short. Again, I still have a few more issues with the entirety of the story of Bleach. Like, there's certain characters that I absolutely don't like. Example, like Pepe, but there's a few like Espadas that I'm not the biggest fan. I do have other issues pertaining to outside of the arc. Like, I didn't like the monster of the weak pacing of the first arc that much, and I also didn't like some other aspects. But let me know what you think about a video like this. Maybe I'll make a part 2 discussing those aspects. I tried to keep it short because I don't like complaining about stuff in a negative fashion that much. I genuinely prefer being positive about a series. I hate being too criticizing of any form of media. I think there is a room for criticizing. I think it can be fun to discuss the flaws of a series, but I do much prefer talking about the good stuff of a series. As you can see, the majority of my content is me praising series. Rarely do I talk about negative aspects of series. Have I talked about the negative aspects before of a series? Yes. But overall, I do try to stay more so positive here on the channel. Not that it's a bad thing to be negative about a series, but that's just where my passion lies, is praising the story of Bleach. But here are a list of a few of the flaws I have with the entire story of Bleach, and why I hold those flaws. And it's totally okay if some of these things you disagree with. Some of these things are just personal issues I have in places where I wouldn't have sent the story, but others of them are things that I think are genuine issues, like I said at the start of the video. But if you guys did not cancel me yet on Twitter, hit that subscribe button, drop that like, and comment down below. And thanks for watching. And in the words of Genichimaru, bye bye!